here. This is Monday, March 29th, FinCom Finance and Warrant Commission public hearing. Let me see. Let me grant permission for the Westwood Media Center to record the meeting and ask if anyone else would like to record. Not hearing anyone. Let's move forward. I'd like to just make sure we understand that pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order. This public hearing of the Finance and Warrant Commission of Westwood is being conducted by remote participation. The public is encouraged to join this meeting and can participate fully. Members of the public attending this meeting will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portions of the hearing designated for public comment. You would be queued up in the system and prompted when it is your turn to speak. In order to speak and in order to have your questions read, please state your name and address beforehand, just like we would in any other meeting that we have with FinCom. So, first of all, welcome everyone. Welcome to FinCom folks and all the presenters tonight and participants. We have some presentations tonight, but in the interest of time and because we didn't want this to be too repetitive, we've seen a lot of presentations already. Most of what we'll see tonight is really addressing either new information or changes in wording, okay? We're gonna follow the published agenda that we have tonight. It's my hope that once the public hearing is closed, that we will be able to vote on a portion, if not all, of the warrant articles tonight. Not knowing the extent of the questions and how difficult it may or may not be in Zoom. We do have tomorrow night set up as a continuation of this meeting for voting if needed. So in order to participate, folks, when I say raise your hand, I probably should clarify that. First, it would be worthwhile if you raise your hand within Zoom, and then we have a good view of everyone. Once again, I mentioned for the folks in the public to say your name and address. Tonight we have Pam speaking first about the financial warrant articles and the school building project article, and also the borrowing articles. We have time for member questions in there, questions from the public and press. Chris Coleman will do a summary of the select board articles. We have member questions then. Abby McCabe will do a summary of the planning board articles. And we have time for member questions and questions from the public and press. So are there any questions about from FinCom members about just tonight, how that's going to work? Okay, seeing none, might as well get this moving, and we'll get Pam, if you could share your presentation for us.
Peter, I just have to do the roll call.
Oh yeah, I skipped right over that. Looking at everyone, sorry about that.
Sorry. No, I was texting with Craig too. Are you ready, Pete?
Sure.
Peter Lenz?
Yes, here.
Bill Bruce?
Here.
Jim Ferraro?
Here.
Lauren Fitzpatrick?
Here.
Craig Fiscaldo? He'll be in a minute. George Hertz?
Here.
Angela Hughes?
Here.
Peter Ittig?
Here.
Caitlin Jerzak?
Here.
Tom Kilgariff?
Here.
George Lahan?
Here.
Chris Pareda?
Here.
And Mike Powers.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks Jane for pointing that out. So now we can go to Pam.
Okay, great. Just going to share my screen. Okay, great. Can everyone see that? You should just check in. Okay, great. So thank you for, now we're at the final public hearing. Thank you for all the time and work that you've put into the budget up until this point. I will just point out as we start, as Peter just mentioned, you've been working at this for quite a while. We really started working on the 22 budget last fall. We've been looking at a lot of different detailed material at multiple select board and finance and warrant commission meetings. So tonight we'll look at this in a more summary way. Would you just want to remind everyone that more detail on the budget and all the financial articles is available on the town website, including all the presentations that we've made after each meeting. When we do a presentation, that goes up onto the website. So those are all available, as well as the detailed budget documents. So tonight we'll be looking at these articles in summary, but the detailed books behind them. There's the FY22 municipal budget, the FY22 proposed school budget, the 5-year capital improvement plan, and the proposed FY22 overall budget summary. All of those books are on the website. And that summary book has all kinds of information on lots of areas of the town's finances: debt, university station, taxes, our reserve account, our revenue. So all of that material is available on the website. As we look tonight at the financial articles, just pointing out that we are trying to take care of all areas of our budget. So we will have the operating budget article, and that's the most important article for us, helping to maintain the high quality of services provided by the town and school departments. The budgets are set to try to make sure we have stable and sustainable growth in the budgets. The school budget, 3.4% increase over the current year, and the municipal budget, 3.1%. And we then have a series of capital budget articles. Our base capital that we're doing each year for school and municipal, similar amounts to what we've done last year. And a sewer and ambulance article that come with special revenue. We also have one additional capital budget article this year, as has been done in prior years, that looks to do some important townwide recreation programs, including replacing a turf field at the high school and some work at the pool. We're then also taking care of reserves and liabilities. We have our annual article to do a small transfer into our stabilization fund and continue with the work that's been done on our OPEB trust, keeps us on target with that. And then there are 3 borrowing articles. The school bridge amount for the Hanlon school project, $1.46 million. A small equipment borrowing for 2 pieces of municipal equipment, DPW, and the fire multi-purpose truck. So $650,000 total there. And then a sewer project that we will be borrowing through an MWRA program. So we really are getting to all areas of the budget with the financial articles. All of our articles in total, what will be presented for FY22, comes in at $108,363,000. That's a $2.6 million or 2.5% increase over the current year. And you can see on the table above the different areas where that change is coming. The pie chart shows in blue our school and municipal operating budgets, $72 million combined. So obviously the most important area and where we spend most of our money, almost 70%, is in the annual school and municipal operating budget. Almost 70% of the $108 million in those 2 budgets. As we start to go through the articles, our first 2 articles look at current year, any cleanup we need to do to our FY21 budget. Article 1, we're doing a transfer, and we just have one small item. We need to transfer $20,000 to the DPW street lighting budget. This came about when the ICC building was taken down. There was a piece of equipment on that building that handled the street lights for Washington Street. The DPW director had to get that equipment transferred to another site so we could keep the lights operating. To fund that, we're using an article voted at last town meeting in June. Within Article 4, we had $20,000 for a fire vehicle, a town match for a grant. That was very specific funding. The grant did not come forward. So we're closing out that $20,000 by transferring it over to what we need for the DPW street lighting project. Article 2, again, another adjustment to the current year FY21 budget. We're supplementing the snow and ice budget by $150,000. You'll recall that last year we did not need to supplement. We were in good shape this year until February, and then we did have several storms. So we do need to supplement that budget. Also supplementing our ambulance services and equipment line items, $67,500. These are annual amounts that we do each year, the ambulance and the snow and ice. To fund those, we would appropriate from free cash, additional $150,000 for snow and ice, and use ambulance receipts, $67,500 for the ambulance service. So those are really, annual adjustments we do, relatively minor. I will just point out that what you're not seeing here are any adjustments for COVID-related financial impact. We certainly had impact in FY21 from COVID and the requirements that departments needed to do to change services, particularly with the school department. So there was a lot of spending that had to occur to do some of those things, to set up the remote learning, to clean and sanitize our buildings, different things along that area. We were fortunate to have outside funding for that, both federal FEMA money and then the state CARES money, and then actually the state some specific school funding money. So utilizing all of that, we were able to handle any of the additional COVID impact. So we did not need to supplement our budgets for any of that spending. Moving along, looking at first, Article 3 will be our FY22 operating budget. I just want to point out that budget came out on February 1st, and that's the budget that the Finance and Warrant Commission has been reviewing over the last 2 months. Very minor changes from that document that was printed in February. First, 2 outside assessments. So one, the Blue Hills Regional School Assessment. We received an estimate early in the process that we had in the February 1 document. We have received an update from Blue Hills for that assessment for FY22. That assessment will be $129,617. That's a decrease of about $2,600 or 2%. As compared to the current year's budget. It's about $10,300 less than what we were carrying in the original budget. And I will point out the Blue Hills schools, we currently have about 6 students from Westwood attending there. Their total school population is about 900 students. So it's a relatively small amount for us. And again, that assessment's gone down compared to what you saw in the earlier budget. On the right side here, similar, we received an update for the MWRA assessment that's within our sewer budget. The updated assessment is $3.2 million for FY22. That's an increase of about $150,000 or 4.8% compared to the current year. It is about $112,000 lower than what was in that original budget document that went out on February 1. And with the sewer being an enterprise fund, we will reduce the budget down to the assessment that we need, and also the sewer budget revenue will be reduced down, so there's no overall budget impact. And then just 2 other items within the operating budget. The Westwood school budget, at the final meeting with the school committee, voted on their requested budget for FY22. They voted a budget of just over $50 million. An increase of 3.44% over the current year. That was just a slight increase, about $9,200 more than, again, what was in your original budget document on February 1. The school committee did want to include a part-time half-year director of security position. And I know they went through that with you when they were in presenting. So that's a change from, again, the documents that went out on February 1. And then just one final update on the left, the health insurance budget. And we had talked about this at one of your previous meetings. We did receive our final rates for FY22 from the GIC Commission on March 4th. The average rate increase for FY22 is 5.2%. There's a range though. The active employee, the various plans range from a 3.2% increase to a 12.1% increase. Our most subscribed plan, which happens to be Tufts Navigator, has an increase of 4.8%, and the retiree plans have increases of about 2.3%. So while there's a range of different increases, we are able to keep, we run the plans through our current listing of our subscribers. We don't need any adjustment to the original budget that you saw on February 1, which was the 5% increase to the health insurance budget. So I think that was something that Bill had mentioned at one of our last meetings, and he was right where the average increase came in on, but with the different individual ranges for the different plans, we're fine with the budget as we originally presented. No need to increase that. So other than that, all of the numbers you're seeing tonight are the ones you've been working with from February 1st. So the first budget article for FY22 is our operating budget, the main budget for all of our departments for the fiscal year FY22. That budget would be just over $101.3 million. It's a $3 million or 3.1% increase over the current year. Looking at where that increase is coming of the $3 million total, $1.6 million increase would be for the school budget. Our next largest area would be at our fixed cost budget, $933,000, a 5% increase for fixed cost. And as we've mentioned before, that includes our health insurance, our pension assessment, payroll taxes, all of that in there. The bar graph on the bottom shows how our operating budget is distributed by the various areas. Our school budget in blue are our largest spending, again, just over $50 million. Municipal 22.3 shown in the red. Total fixed cost 18.5, and our debt service in green 5.7 million. This is a very standard distribution for a suburban community in Massachusetts with a high-performing school district. So again, the operating budget, our main area, 101.3 million, a 3.1% increase over the current year. Looking next at the capital budget articles, just to summarize first, this bar graph shows our spending on our main base capital for school and municipal over the last several years. Our financial policies indicate we should be spending about $2.6 million on that base capital. You can see on the graph that about 10 years ago, we were far from that, about a third of that. At $813,000 total. We've tried to steadily increase that spending to get it up more to where it needs to be. And we've been successful in doing that over the last couple of years. So the proposal for FY22 is shown in green, $2.3 million. And that breaks out to $1.3 million for municipal capital and just over $1 million for school. That's funded with free cash. And again, we're much more on target, much steadier. This provides for the annual upkeep of all of our buildings and equipment. And that has been significantly improved again over the last couple of years. The other capital article we'll look at tonight, since FY17, the town meeting has approved an additional capital budget article. And the effort has been to help us with capital that had been deferred in those years when we were not meeting our base goal, and also for any larger items that don't fit easily into those base capital articles. So there's one article proposed tonight for this year's town meeting, shown in green, FY22, just $1.06 million. And that would fund 3 projects. As I mentioned, the turf field replacement, the high school multipurpose practice field in the back of the parking lot for $750,000, and then 2 pieces of capital that need to be done on the pool, resurfacing and replacing the deck for $200,000, and draining the pool and refurbishing the lining, $110,000. And those would be proposed to be funded with our meal and hotel tax revenue. These 3 projects really are townwide used facilities. Our pool gets used by everyone of all ages in this town, from youngsters who start their first swimming lessons there. The high school teams use that pool, as well as our seniors have a very active water aerobics program. Similar with the multipurpose, it's not only used by the high school teams, but also multiple youth sports teams in town use that field. So these are important projects to go forward, and we do have the funding in the meal and hotel tax account. So then just looking specifically at the capital budget articles, Article 4 is that municipal capital listing. As I mentioned, $1.3 million, all being funded by free cash. You can see the listing of the various equipment and for each of the departments. This is really in some ways a standard list for the town that gets at replacing and upkeeping of our vehicles for particularly our public safety and DPW departments, as well as funding to make sure that we're maintaining our buildings. I'll point out one item here. It is the last year of a 5-year lease payment that we had for 2 major pieces of fire apparatus that we did 5 years ago. So you'll see that drop off, this $226,000 drop off in FY23 budget. The next article, Article 5, is the school capital improvement list. Again, totaling over $1.1 million, funded with free cash, same level that we've been able to do for the last couple of years. And again, this gets to a wide listing of projects for the school, making sure that they're maintaining their buildings, that they're doing a rollover and investment in their technology needs, as well as furniture and equipment. Article 6 is a sewer article. This year it's a borrowing article. This article requests to borrow $500,000 to continue work to inspect and repair the sewer system. So very important work to make sure that that stays operational. This would be borrowed solely through a program with the MWRA. They have a terrific program that's funded from the state that helps to make sure communities are properly maintaining their sewer systems. We do this about every 5 years. Our last one was 2016, that we were able to get some authorization with them. So the $500,000 would totally go through their program. We would receive 75% of that as a grant and 25% as a no interest loan that would be done with the MWRA. I do just want to point out that any of the borrowing articles you'll see tonight, the language in the article is very specific. Anytime the town borrows, where town meeting authorizes us to borrow, we're entering into a long-term arrangement, almost like when you're going to take out a mortgage. So it's important that the article reads with all the legal requirements that we need. So we actually have bond counsel write all of the language for the borrowing articles. And the articles have 2 pieces, kind of the article itself, and then what the Finance and Warrant Commission motion would be, what your recommendation would be. So we're showing that the language of the article, which sometimes is not as descriptive, and then the actual recommendation that you make is what has to be pretty specific as designed by bond counsel to make sure we're legally authorized to enter into the long-term borrowing. Article 7 is additional capital that's funded with particular revenue. 4 items here. Breathing apparatus equipment for the fire department, rescue equipment for the fire department, funded with ambulance receipts. Those are standard amounts that we have each year. We also have for the fire department to replace one of the ambulances this year. That's $387,000. All 3 of those items funded with ambulance receipts. Stormwater compliance, this is another standard item we've been doing each year within our sewer department, $70,000, and that's funded with sewer retained earnings. So $505,000 total for that article, all coming with specific revenue source. And then Article 8 is that additional capital improvement article that I mentioned, $1,060,000 to fund replacing the turf field and the 2 projects at the pool. And again, we would use our meal and hotel tax revenue to fund that. We do currently, as of December 2020, we had just over $2 million in our meal and hotel tax revenue account. So that's funding already on hand. We would be getting our next quarterly allotment within the next couple of days. So we'll know what we've gotten for the quarter and how much we've added to that. But we do currently have over $2 million in that account, And we would be requesting to appropriate the $1,060,000 from that for these couple of projects. Article 9 is really a housekeeping, just cleanup article. Here, we're just rescinding some unused debt for the police station project. So the police station project was done in, I believe, 2016. Town meeting was approved as a $13.2 million borrowing article. When we actually went out to borrow, we borrowed $12.7 million and then received $450,000 in bond premium funding as part of the sale. So all of that was put to the project to get to the $13.2 million. The project's been completed and is closed out. What town meeting is doing now is just closing out this $450,000 borrowing authorization. It remains right now as an open credit line. We want to close that out. We would not be using any of that borrowing. And again, we're just showing you here on the slide the language for the article and then what the FinCom recommendation would be to actually approve and vote that article. Article 11 is our annual smaller transfer into our stabilization fund, the town's main saving account. We would transfer $125,000 from free cash into the stabilization fund. That is consistent with what we've done for the last couple of years. That would bring our fund balance in FY22 up to about 3.7 million, right on target where we need to be. You'll recall that about 10 years ago, through a couple of one-time revenue sources, we were able to build the fund up and now just do a small amount each year to keep on track with target. This is a very important component of our saving, of our credit rating. It's the town's main savings account. Would be used in time of very unusual occurrence. We had talked before last year about maybe needing to use this with our COVID impact. We did not need to use this account at all because of that outside funding we got, but it is available to us for that type of thing. So that would be Article 11. And then in Article 12 is our annual appropriation into our OPEB liability trust fund. Consistent with what we've done for the last several years, we are increasing that amount each year by $25,000 to stay on track with meeting that liability. So this year it would be 1.49 million in this article transferred into our trust account, as shown in green. And similar to our stabilization, a couple of years ago, about 10 years ago, we were able to through some savings in our healthcare budget, increase this liability to the annual payment to what we needed it to be. And now we're just doing a small incremental increase each year to stay on track. The town has done very well with meeting the OPEB liability requirements. As of December 20th, we have approximately $13.5 million in that OPEB liability trust fund. So certainly great progress made there over the last 6 or 7 years. Article 13 is the Hanlon School Bridge Funding Project. So this would be an article to authorize the town to borrow $1.46 million for the school committee to continue work on that project until the fall town meeting, which at that point they would request full funding for the whole project. So I know the school has been in and gone through this with you. So I won't say more than that, other than, again, this is the language from bond counsel as far as what the article says. And then this is the language that you would have to use as your recommendation, and that would be the motion for town meeting. And again, I know that this is lengthy and a lot of legalese. But again, we really don't have any choice when we enter into a borrowing. We kind of need to have this full language that authorizes the town to borrow, specifies what the project is for, specifies that we would reduce our borrowing if we got any MSBA funding for this project. So that's the school article. And as we talked about, that they would get this approval at this May town meeting. The town would only do a short-term borrowing to fund actual expenditures over the summer and fall. And then when the full project goes forward at a fall town meeting, if the full project was approved, we would fund long-term this borrowing with the full school project. And then I believe the final one is one other borrowing article for capital. Again, for DPW, piece of a roadside sweeper for $250,000, the fire multi-purpose vehicle for $400,000. So this article would authorize us to borrow $650,000 for these two pieces of equipment. This is similar to an item we did at the last town meeting. We did a $325,000 borrowing authorization for another large piece of DPW equipment. These are just a bit larger than would fit in the municipal capital article. We would only do a short-term borrowing for this for a term of 5 years or less. So those are all the articles. Just a quick slide that shows the revenue that would fund those articles. So $108.3 million total revenue budget, a 2.5% increase. The table shows the revenue by category to make up the $2.6 million or 2.5% increase in revenue. The pie chart shows the funding sources by category. Obviously, in blue, our tax base, almost 80% of our revenue comes from our tax base. We talk about this a lot. That's standard for a suburban community in Massachusetts. It's a difficult funding model to work under. The bulk of our funding is our tax base. But again, that is standard for a community like Westwood in Massachusetts. And then because the taxes is our main revenue, I've just included the one other slide that shows how our tax levy is calculated. We have restrictions on how our tax levy works, what's the maximum amount it could be. We've gone through this at a previous selectmen's FinCom meeting, but just want to kind of show you that, the funding on how we come to what we would be using in tax revenue, $86.5 million for proposed for FY22 total tax revenue. Just want to point out one item. The reason we talk a lot about taxes when we come into your earlier FinCom meetings and we go through this chart in detail is because our funding is regulated by the state. Communities cannot kind of come up with their own taxing policies. So how we value property, how we tax property is all dictated by the state. The state sometimes comes out with options that communities can adopt. So sometimes there are local options for taxes that might include the commercial and residential component. It includes the option for the aid to the elderly. It includes other exemptions that are available. But we are not authorized to do anything unless the state approves it. So the select board cannot dictate, kind of how they'd like to tax people or to tax one group or a neighborhood differently than others. That all has to be approved by the state. If it's not something that's already available, an article would have to be brought to town meeting to propose what the town would like to do. And then that would have to go to the state and be certified by the state for approval. So just to point out that the taxing kind of rules and policies are not at the local level in Massachusetts. It is at the state level. And I just want to mention the aid to the elderly. I know you talked about that briefly at one of your last meetings. The select board at the meeting earlier tonight, at the 5 o'clock meeting, did go through the aid to the elderly program for FY21. We have a summary presentation that talks about that program, talks about the funding for that, how that's distributed, who receives the funding. In FY21, we're going to distribute almost $95,000 from that fund to about 55 residents in town. That fund has been very successful, a very good tool at helping our most vulnerable senior residents in the town, helping them with their tax bill. So we're going to make sure we will send out first thing tomorrow morning. We'll send you that presentation on the aid to the elderly. Again, I know it came up at your last meeting, so this will give you the opportunity to look at that and see how that fund worked. It's really a great tool that the town has been using to really help our long-term senior residents with the tax bill impact. I think that's it. I did include in the back here the Appendix D detail, the Article 3 operating budget. This had gone out earlier to the FinCom. And again, except for those couple of minor items, no different than what you had in your budget books on February 1. But the couple of pages on the operating budget, the detail by various departments, again, $101.3 million or 3.1% increase over the current year. Oops.
That's great, Pam. Thank you. And thanks for the additional information regarding the aid to the elderly. I think that's very helpful for us to understand that. If you would stop sharing, or there you go. Okay, great. So I guess I have a question to Jane and or Connor. I'm not seeing at least in my screen, an ability to raise your hand in Zoom. I see the Q&A ability, but I don't see the raise your hand thing.
For the attendees, they should be able to have the raise their hand feature at the bottom. I think because you're a panelist, you might not have it, but
Okay.
I'm looking on my own attendee account and I'm seeing that hand go up.
Yeah, I do have it.
Okay, good. So because I can't see it, I won't be able to respond to who has raised their hand. So
I can prompt
let
you.
me, excuse me?
I can prompt you to let you know if there's
Okay.
something.
So let's open this up to questions from FinCom members for Pam. Does anyone have any questions?
Chris Pareda?
Okay, go Chris.
Yeah, I just have one comment on the proposed Finance Commission motion language for the school project. And I understand that bond counsel thinks it's all legalese. I disagree. There's one phrase in that motion that I think sounds more like an advertisement than legal basis. And that's the phrase that talks about how long we expect the building to last. I don't want the public to think that this is a referendum on the project itself. This is a very limited borrowing authorization for a very limited purpose. And the discussion on the project is going to occur in the fall. So I don't want this to become a referendum on the project. And I think that phrase in that motion lends itself to people thinking that it's a referendum on the project itself. Let me go back and read you the phrase that I'm talking about. If you hang on just a second. It's just the phrase, which school facility shall have an anticipated useful life as an educational facility for the instruction of school children for at least 50 years. Maybe that's a requirement that we have to show the MSBA to get funding. If that's the case, then we've already said that by saying the next phrase, and for which the town may be eligible for grant. I don't want to fight with bond counsel over it. I just think it's a little bit unnecessary. And my concern is that it may lead people to believe that this is a referendum on the project itself. And I don't want people to do that. This is a very, like I said, this is a very limited borrowing authority of up to $1.4 million. It's not even clear to me that the entire amount will need to be borrowed. But we have, I'll go with the school building committee thinking that they may need that as a top end, but we need to keep this as narrow and as limited as possible in the minds of the public. And that's my only comment on that. I don't think we have to go back to bond counsel and try to get them to rewrite the motion. I just have that concern with the language, and it may just mean that when we get to town meeting, we need to say something about that so that people understand that this is a very limited motion.
Chris, I'd be happy to have a quick check with bond counsel on it just to see.
All right, if you
Mr. Chairman,
I noted which phrase you said, and I'm happy to check that. And it may be that, we need to have it, but if he was comfortable making an adjustment, then I'll get that back to you right away.
Well,
Okay.
I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, why don't I suggest, Chris, that you use your write-up ability to explain what you've just gone through when you present it for your booklet. That
Yeah,
might be a
that's
great
an
opportunity to do that.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. I don't want to hold up tonight's vote of the Finance Commission, and I don't want to delay anything. But that's an excellent idea. We could, I'm not writing the that particular one, but whoever is might put something in there about that and in the write-ups that goes to the town. Excellent. Thank you.
This is Maya Plotkin, if I may. This language may have come from the MSBA itself. So let me check with Compass and make sure that, because the MSBA does review this and there are certain elements it requires us to include. So let me just make sure one way or the other.
Bond counsel, Mayor, working though with MSBA.
Right. I know MSBA has reviewed this. So let me just, Pam, if you're checking with bond counsel, we'll check with the MSBA and we'll just make sure that, try and figure out.
Maya and Pam, thank you very much for doing that. But as Pat suggested, we can address this another way without, I don't want to delay tonight's vote by the commission.
Right.
And that may do that. So
That's a great point, Pat, to make sure to stress in the write-up. As I said in the presentation, the borrowing language is really a lot of legalese because it's what we need when we actually go out and issue our bonds. They're going back to this language, making sure that we are authorized to do the borrowing that we're going through.
And as I understand it, Pam, if the town approves the project in the fall, then this borrowing authority will just be rolled into the larger project. And that may account for the reason why the language is as it is. It gets to get rolled in.
Yes, let us borrow it for that same length of,
Okay, thank you. I do see Peter Ittig's hand raised. So Peter. go ahead.
Yes, thank you. My question for Pam is whether this budget is still predicated upon a 3% increase in the property tax on homes.
That's the current estimate. So when we look at that tax levy projection, we can only say the estimate today. When we went through that document with the actual levy itself, we expect that the actual new tax growth that we would get would be higher than what we're projecting currently, so that the increase may not be 3%, it may be less than that, but that is the current estimate. And we've talked significantly about that's the total tax levy. That does not take into account what happens with the change in values, because that does not occur until next fall, when the actual values are set and approved by Department of Revenue, where the commercial residential tax shift is set by the selectmen. So just in general, the levy for non-new growth is estimated at a 3% increase today.
Thank you.
Okay, let me see. I don't see any other hands raised in Zoom. Okay, Angela,
Yes, hi.
you're going the manual way. That's good.
Oh, I don't have a way to, sorry, I didn't have
All right.
I missed the raise hand thing. So, but I mean, I know I've asked this question and I'm just curious what happened with the Article 10, the special purpose fund for affordable housing. I don't recall hearing anyone saying that it was withdrawn. And I didn't hear any mention of it this evening. So, if someone could just explain, what happened there.
It was withdrawn this evening at the select board meeting, pardon me. At the planning board meeting last week, the planning board voted to take the funds directly from the green development down on Clapboard Tree Street and give them directly to WAHA rather than have to go through a special fund. So that's why it was withdrawn.
Mr. Chair, just can expand on that a
Yes,
little bit.
go ahead, Chris.
So in addition to that, the select board did remove budget item 10, which is what Ms. Hughes was referring to and what Mr. Hearn just mentioned. Also remove miscellaneous items 4 and 5. So right now we have a total of 22 warrant articles. In addition, the select board also supported a recommendation from the school committee to hold a special town meeting on April 18th and a special election on, October 18th, I apologize, and a special election on October 26th.
Okay, so, so when we talk about getting funding, you said it's coming from WAHA. So what would that funding be used for? So that was my curiosity with the
There's
article.
a restriction, the planning board restricted it, that WAHA may only use it to purchase additional units, new affordable housing units.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from FinCom members? Jim Ferrero. Are you muted, Jim?
Sorry. I don't know if this is the right time, but Angela just opened it up, so I thought since we're on topic. We also have the $150,000 appropriation in Article 4 for WAHA. That's on top of the $1 million they got last year. What's the other $150,000? Is that restricted too?
The 150, yes, we've been doing each year, I think this is the third year. That's for repair and maintenance to current existing affordable housing.
Okay.
WAHA took some property, was given some property to the town and to WAHA. It was not really in up to standard for being able to rent out. And that's what that funding is for.
Right, but we gave WAHA $1 million, and I understand they purchased 2 houses. I would have been less concerned if the houses stayed an asset of the town and WAHA managed them, but then WAHA refinanced the houses. So they came into a significant amount of cash on top of the cash we're giving them. How in disrepair are these homes? And I mean, are the residents of the town deriving any direct benefit from this?
Well, is Nora on?
Yes, I'm here. So I don't feel like I can speak on behalf of WAHA, but I can tell you that there's a clear benefit to having affordable housing and having affordable housing that is funded by the taxpayers. We are constantly striving to stay above 10% on the subsidized housing inventory, and WAHA's properties help to put us above there. The 2 new homes they acquired and the new homes that they are looking to acquire, plus the homes that they are renovating to make them eligible for listing, are likely to get us over the 10% when we see the census figures come in towards the end of the year. So we're very close, and without the WAHA homes, I'm sure we won't get there. With the WAHA homes, I'm cautiously optimistic that we will be above 10%. So I think the benefit to the Westwood taxpayers is that they maintain control over their community by only having friendly 40B developments and no unfriendly ones, because we're able to stay above 10%.
I can see your argument with the purchasing of the house. Again, I would have preferred the houses stayed an asset of the town, but going forward, you know, $150,000 a year coming out of the taxpayers' pockets for maintenance of somebody else's house. You know, I think a lot of people are struggling in this time and era. And I think that's a lot of money going to somebody else's house. I have no objection to affordable housing, but I think it's got to be a little bit more confined.
Yeah, I believe Jim, WAHA came to the town, I think we're in year 3 of a 4 or 5 year plan. So it would not be ongoing, but really was an effort to bring the housing, as Nora said, up to standard. The town at its initial phases of trying to develop affordable housing had been gifted some homes that were not up to standard, and WAHA was not able to really renovate those properly and maintain an affordable rental arrangement. So they did come and as part of the capital budget process, asked if forgetting if it's a 4 or 5 year period, to have some funding where each year they brought another house up. So I believe this is year 3, this 150. And then they would be able to maintain them going forward. And one of the reasons the housing goes into the WAHA name is because the town, we could not take out a mortgage on that property if it stayed in the town's name. We couldn't go to the bank and get a mortgage for that property.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no others, I think we can open this up to the public and press. I do see one hand raised of Jamie Allen, and Jane or Connor, could you, okay, talking is now permitted for Jamie, I believe. So Jamie, could you go forward, say your name and address and your point or question?
Hang on, I'll start the video. Hi there, I'm Jamie Allen. Anyway, 530 Pond Street. And I just wanted to know at what point will I be given an opportunity to speak up on zoning? I know you're talking about budgeting now.
Yeah, that's later in the meeting.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Thanks. I
Yep.
appreciate all of your hard work, by the way.
Okay, no problem. And
Thanks.
That's it. We'll talk a little bit later in the meeting.
Great, thanks.
Okay, thank you. I am not seeing, and Jane or Connor, you can tell me differently if there's.
Robert Tucker is next, Peter. If Mr. Tucker could give us his name and address, we're going to promote him now.
Sorry, I actually don't have a question. I'm just an innocent bystander raising hand by mistake. Sorry.
No problem. Jane, do you see anyone else?
There's no one else and there's no one there.
Okay, great.
If I can mention one last thing, Peter, before I get off, we talked about debt tonight. So I just want to mention quickly, a quick preview. The select board will be voting this at their meeting, upcoming meeting on Monday, April 5th. But the town did sell a large bond last week for debt that previous town meeting had authorized. And we also refinanced the bonds in place for the library and the Thurston Middle School modular units. And we got and this bond contained some 20-year components, we got a 1.14% interest rate.
Wow.
So really great time to sell, to issue bonds. As part of that, we also had to undergo a credit review, and we had our AAA rating reaffirmed. So lots of good news. We'll go to the selectmen on Monday. They'll be signing the bonds, and then we'll get that information out to you. But particularly on the refinancing opportunities for the Thurston and the library, we had 10 more years remaining on the library, and we're able to bring that payment down significantly. And as that debt was approved outside of 2.5, that means what we'd be raising in taxes from 2.5 is going to come down. It's about a $750,000 savings over the remaining 10-year life of the bond. So we were excited about that. I just wanted to mention it when we were talking debt, and we'll get more of that out to you within the next couple of weeks.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's great news. Okay, so then if we could move to the next section, which would be Chris Coleman going over some select board articles.
Thank you. I believe I have Todd and Nora present. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So, the first is going to be the street acceptance, Cranston Avenue. This is a reconstruction of Cranston Avenue. This article was originally planned to be brought to the town for last year's annual town meeting, but because of the injunction that we received and we only did the financial articles, this was one of the articles that was removed. The cost is approximately $31,000. And we do have sign off from the 3 property owners on Cranston Ave. Todd, is there any additional information you'd like to provide?
No, Chris, you hit every point. Just all 3, like you said, have signed off and are very excited to have the road formally accepted.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I didn't know if you want to go into questions on this one, or you want to go through all 3
We'll
articles.
just wait till the end, Chris, to see if there are any questions. Thanks.
So the next 2 articles refer to Linda Baker, and I would certainly turn this over to Nora to make sure I don't confuse anyone else.
Hi, so this first article, Select Board Article 2, is to accept the former Lodge soccer field as a town-owned facility. It would be the same field plus a 40-car parking lot that the Green Company has created at the site to serve the field. And this would be acquired by the town if town meeting so votes, and it would become a perpetual field for the town to use for youth sports, soccer and lacrosse. And it would have some deeded restrictions. I know Pat Ahern is on. I don't know if you want to talk at all about those restrictions. They're essentially that it would remain a grass field and would not be lighted, but could be continually used by the town in the typical soccer and lacrosse seasons. And then Article 3 would be to accept as a municipal property the site that the LifeWorks group home is on, which also was formerly part of the Westwood Lodge property. This is on Clabber Tree. We refer to it as Lot 1 on Clabber Tree. It was separated out from the overall Lodge property, and it has been leased by the Green Company to LifeWorks. And if town meeting so votes, the town would accept title to that property and would issue a new lease to LifeWorks. I believe it's a 99-year lease for $10 or so, with the same requirements that the current lease that LifeWorks has with the Green Company, and that's to maintain a group home, which is eligible for listing on our subsidized housing inventory. Currently, there are 5 residents of the group home, and each of the 5 resident rooms qualify as affordable units. So the existence of this property added 5 homes to our subsidized housing inventory.
Okay, great. So let me open this up first to members of FinCom. Any questions regarding those 3 articles?
Jesus.
George, do you have a question or? Okay.
No, I had a frog in my throat. I'm sorry.
Okay. I guess I would have a question for Nora regarding the LifeWorks. What is the responsibility with the 99-year lease of LifeWorks to keep that property up and current?
So the lease is for LifeWorks to continue to lease the property from the town and to maintain the property indefinitely, as long as they're there. So their lease it would only be broken by the town if they fail to live up to the terms, which would be maintaining the property and keeping it actively used as a group home, which is eligible for listing on the SHI. If they ever fail to do that, the lease would cease to exist, and then the town would have the property, which we could lease out to another group home provider, or we could choose to sell the property if that was what was appropriate at the time to continue its use as affordable housing.
And as far as keeping it up, that is enforced by someone in the town going and inspecting that on an ongoing basis?
It certainly could be. We could have our building department inspected on a periodic basis. It's a little bit different than anything else we've had before. So the other group properties in town, including 2 of them that are owned by LifeWorks, they own the property, they don't lease it. In this case, we went with the long-term lease more so that the town maintained control over the property, but it acts equivalent to as if they were the owners. The terms of the lease, we expect them to treat this property as they have their 2 others, which are in excellent condition. So I don't foresee any problems with that, but we could certainly set up some annual or every 5 years, whatever made sense, some type of inspection, and that could be put into the lease terms.
Okay, any other FinCom questions? Not seeing anybody, any others. Looking at the agenda, the next would be for Abby McCabe as the town planner to
Abby's with
present
us.
the planning board articles.
Yes, hello, thank you. I'm Abby McCabe, the town planner, and with me tonight is the chair of the planning board, David Atkins is here as well. The planning board submitted to town meeting 6 zoning articles. Oh, let me see, can I just share my screen? The planning board, as you heard from the last time we were here on March 8th, and in your packet, the planning board has submitted a total of 6 zoning articles. Since we were last before you, the planning board held a continued hearing on March 16th, and at that time they discussed together as a board, took in more public comments, and had a full discussion, and ultimately they made one change to one of their articles. It was Article 5. This is the zoning article related to creating a new substance rehabilitation treatment facility overlay district. The Article 5 proposes a new special permit with very strict criteria that the zoning board would have to approve if we got one of those applications. When we are here before you at March 8th, the planning board then proposed the overlay district at Southwest Park. But since that time, they heard some concerns about that location. So on March 16th, they voted and ultimately changed the location to be on Allied Drive. That's 5 parcels along the town line. But the parcels in Westwood, is mostly on the other side of the highway. They selected this location because it's furthest away from any of the residential neighborhoods in Westwood. So the only change to the zoning was the location from Southwest Park. It'll now the new overlay district for any treatment centers. If we were to get one, they could only be considered at these properties on Allied Drive. Other than that, all the other 6 zoning articles remain the same. So it was just this map, the map changed, but the rest of the bylaw for the new special permit criteria remains the same. And so myself and Dave are here if you have any other questions.
Okay, so let me open this up to FinCom members. Any questions from FinCom members? Tom Kilgariff first.
Thanks, Peter.
Sorry about that. Lauren will be next.
So Abby, just to sort of review from the last time we met, the change to the Allied Drive location, that's part of the thinking there was that the town of Dedham has established that as their area for similar zoning, correct? For that type of a clinic?
Yes, that's right. They allow a treatment centers by special permit, and I think it's 4 zoning districts, but one of the areas is that area, that side of Dedham, adjacent to these parcels.
And is that a proposal for Dedham, or is that a done deal for Dedham?
That's their current zoning.
That's current zoning. All right, cool, great. Thank you.
Okay, so I saw Lauren, and then Diane will be after Lauren.
Yes, thank you. Abby or David, could you just explain what the concerns were with Southwest Park, why that was changed?
I know at the last meeting with FinCom and with the planning board, there was, just that its location and that there was a preschool recently approved for the area in Southwest Park. which is allowed in any zoning district, but that did come forward, was will be opening soon in Southwest Park. So the location on Allied Drive is further away from any other residential neighborhood. So that's why the board thought that was the best location.
And I think, because I did submit this question though too, and you answered it, but I just want to make sure though that I understand. So if there is ever a proposal for any of these type of medical uses and buildings and everything, the person who's the people who are proposing it will have to ask Westwood and along with Dedham, correct? Is that what would have to happen?
Right.
Process?
Right. If one of these treatment facilities were proposed in Westwood, it would need a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Also, what we call a site plan review with the planning board. But then if it was also over the town line in Dedham, then they would need a special permit from Dedham as well. And we had one instance of this in the past, the MRI Shields building. At that time, the planning board held a hearing. Westwood and Dedham planning board met together and had their hearings the same evening. So that may or may not happen, but we'd likely try to coordinate so that we could hear both sides of the issues if that were to happen.
Thank you.
Okay, Diane, next, please.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment. I think the hypothesis that this Article 5 is based on is faulty. For those of you who know me, you know that I was trained as a clinical social worker and continue to work in community health and serve on the board of Dimmick Community Health Center. And one of the programs that we offer are for folks who suffer from substance use disorder. And I think the premise that we are citing any possible facility that treat folks who suffer from substance use disorder in an area where it would be highly unfavorable to them. And we're doing that because we're protecting our community from folks who suffer from substance use disorder is, I think, a faulty assumption. And I think until the community educates itself by having folks in who actually run these programs and understand folks who suffer from substance use disorder, as I'm sure actually many of us on this board do, I think that the proposal is faulty.
Thank you, Diane. Chris Pareda.
Thanks, Peter. Dave Atkins, do you have any concern that the Attorney General is not going to allow us to totally prohibit hospitals?
Not based on our conversations with Pat Ahern, that hospitals are not a protected, not a protected use, whereas the substance abuse treatment centers are disability protected use, right, Pat? I mean, that's we think, and the hospital, I asked about that, like why do we not want a hospital? It's like there's not a good place in Westwood where we would want to promote that happening, and so kind of
how are we different from Needham?
Are we different from Needham? I think Needham already has is a more urban center. It already had the hospital there for a long time. If you looked at Westwood, where could we put it? I guess it would be, there's not really a good place. I mean, it's, I don't want to speculate about what could happen to businesses and all, but when we looked at the maps and all, we didn't see a lot of space for a hospital. It's mostly residential. And it's getting back to the substance treatment center. It's not that people think, they're inherently bad, but neighborhoods clearly want, they don't want the traffic, they don't want the activity to be close to neighborhoods. And in Westwood, it's mostly residential, so it's very hard to find a place. In Dedham, there are large zones that have been zoned for this. And, they're more closer to urban, closer to retail, but that's really their choice too, so.
Chris, one of the reasons we divided it up into 3 different articles is if the Attorney General decides to frown on any one article, if they were all tied together, they'd all go down. This way they can go down individually. I believe it's good law that you can prohibit hospitals right now, but I'm not sure. It's kind of like hitting a moving target. It used to be, if you remember last year when we talked about the gun zoning, we weren't sure which way the Attorney General was going to go till she reviewed the Dedham article and she allowed restrictions on guns in certain areas. So I believe it's good law, but good law can, as you know, can be a bit of a moving target.
Strike while the iron's hot. I love the fact that you divided it up. I think that was a great tactical decision. So,
thank you,
all right.
sir.
Thanks.
Any other FinCom questions? I see Jim Ferraro. Jim, unmute, please.
Yep, sorry, a little slow to the key. Abby, I haven't seen the final draft on Article 2 regarding the guns and explosives. But in the prior drafts, there was, the last sentence talked about intent. Is that still in there, or has that been removed? Typically, we don't put intent in the warrant article, and after our last meeting, we had a few comments from Second Amendment advocates, and I don't think we want to call them undesirable foot traffic.
Right. You should have received in your packet the full warrant article. The planning board, they didn't make any changes to the planning board zoning Article 2. They are still allowed, as proposed, it's only prohibiting the firearm sales in the 2 local business districts on.
Right, no, let me stop you there. No, my only question is there still a last sentence that talks about the intent of the article? Is that still in there?
Oh, I mean, I think that was in the summary,
Right.
memo, but not, it's not in the article itself.
Okay,
Not in the
thank you.
zoning article, yeah.
Fine.
Any other FinCom members with a question? Not seeing any. Let's go to public hands raised. I see a John O'Brien. John, please go ahead and state your name and your address.
It's John O'Brien Jr. at 91 Hawk Tree Drive in Westwood. And following up on Mr. Ferraro's question, why did this issue come up? Is there a public safety issue? Is the issue that the town doesn't consider gun retailers to be legitimate businesses? And isn't it presently firearm retailers are only allowed a special permit from the Board of Appeals in the 4 zones in which they're currently operating? And if that is actually factual or accurate, then isn't this article unnecessary? Essentially, what brought this article to the forefront?
Right. The purpose of this article was not to try to change the way we review these uses. It is currently allowed in 4 zoning districts in the industrial zone and highway business zone. But the planning board didn't feel it was the type of use that they were looking for in the 2 village districts on Washington Street and High Street, because in those areas we're trying to attract businesses that attract, generate a lot of foot traffic and generate, people coming downtown, coming to our town centers and visiting. And they didn't feel that, the planning board didn't feel that this was the best use for those 2 zones, but it's still allowed, as proposed, still allowed in the 2 other zoning districts by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
May I have a follow-up, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, John.
Could you describe a bit further when the planning board says it isn't the type of foot traffic or business that they want in that area? It seems to address Mr. Ferraro's comment about intent. It seems to be specifically trying to eliminate a particular group.
I would there's a couple of points. So I wouldn't characterize it as trying to eliminate anything, but to prioritize other uses. And to some background, I mean, I think I introduced the idea at the planning board because I saw the Dedham gun shop that was being proposed, and I actually went to the planning board meeting over there, and it was a room full of people, very contentious, very unhappy because it was a retail area, and it was okay. It was it's just a regular retail use, but it was very close to a neighborhood, and regardless of what individuals feel on Second Amendment rights and everything, it was a community challenge. There were a lot of people very upset about it, and so I looked at Westwood and I said, great, we actually already have this defined in our zoning. So there are specific places where it's defined, and there's a place where guns are sold in Westwood in the industrial district. It's a good place. It's already there. There's parking. It's easy to get to, but it's also for the village centers. You know, it was also in local business A, local business B, and thinking about how we want those village centers to develop. We would prefer, I think, to see things like coffee shops and bike shops and other sorts of retail uses that are ice cream stores and uses that fit together, that are not a single sort of use. And so, you know, part of my motivation in doing this was I don't want to see a community get into a whole battle over something, which I think would happen if there were a gun shop proposed for Islington Center or for High Street. I think that there's a good location already where there's gun options there at on University Ave. And so by just removing the zoning from the local business A and local business B, it would help to encourage the kinds of things that I think the majority of people in the community want to see in there, that they can walk to, and kids can go to the ice cream store and all that. So I think it's a choice. It's a choice of preferring certain uses over others, but it's not going to limit anybody's access to firearms or ability to exercise their Second Amendment rights.
May I follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Just one last time, John, then
Thank you very much.
we have many others.
Appreciate it, sir. The concern is, accepting Mr. Atkins' comments, the concern is it's eliminating something. And is it the beginning of eliminating the other zones? And I think that's a legitimate concern. It's perspective. There's no question about it. But just accepting his comments that he just had, in order to get to where he's talking about, you have to have an automobile. That's just a small example of the impact it has on someone who may not have an automobile or wants to be able to walk down and utilize that type of a retailing shop. I appreciate the opportunity to address the committee. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. So then we have Chris Allen. Chris, you're open to speak right now. Could you please state your name and your address?
Yes, hi, this is Chris.
I've lost Chris. Are other folks hearing him?
Hi.
He has
Chris-
bandwidth issues.
Chris, if you can hear us, we're having a problem. You're breaking up for us.
Everybody hear me okay?
Now we can.
Hello?
Let's give it a chance.
Yeah, this is Chris Allen here. I'm at 530 Pond Street. I just wanted to make one very brief comment. If this zoning is geared toward safety concerns, maybe I can allay those fears somewhat. I think most of the people in town that would be interested in patronizing a gun shop are gun owners who have been thoroughly vetted. They own guns. They, at some point in their lives, have been basically vetted through a police chief. Okay, so there are police chiefs in every town and every city in Massachusetts that have to vet people that want to carry and own firearms. So I think that from a safety perspective, this is probably one of the safest ventures you can actually have in your town. So again, I understand from the previous speaker, there are economic concerns. I can't speak to that. I don't know whether it's better to have a gun shop or an ice cream shop, you know, in town. But I do think that safety concerns shouldn't be an issue here. I think it's not really an issue in this case. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let me see. Previously, I don't see Jamie. Oh, Jamie Allen, you are. Okay, so Jamie, I just allowed you to talk, so why don't you go ahead and please restate where you live.
Hi, this is Jamie Allen, and I'm downstairs from my husband, hoping that our, computer connections don't clash. But I'm at 530 Pond Street, and we've been here almost 29 years. And of course, I agree with my husband about, the safety. I was going to address now Dave Atkins and his following the Dedham situation. And that is actually a completely different situation, because they had, that gun shop had inappropriate signs and advertising, not appropriate for children, online and in their windows, which apparently when the town got upset, they took it down. But yes, I think that, it is infringing on our rights when, like the other gentleman said, that why can't you go walk? I mean, I don't want to go to a podiatrist. They turned our little Christie's, it was Christie's in the old day, to a I think podiatrist or something. I would rather have an ice cream shop there. But I think that you should let the town decide, that we, let the town decide, and don't, where we want it. And if we want it, no one's even applying right now. It's just definitely you're singling out a certain group in your, politicizing. There's not, it's like Dave's trying to be very proactive there with his anti-Second Amendment views, and we don't want our rights to be infringed on. That's a very strong statement. I mean, why did he not put out their strip club? That's not child friendly. Those people haven't been vetted. Why did he pick this specifically? And once again, this is not the same situation as Dedham. Westwood residents are very different than Dedham. They're a little bit more citified or whatever. And we're a quiet, sleepy town, and I don't think that this in any way should be singled out. Again, we have a Westwood gun club. We have a lot of very active members, and trust me, when there's a problem, the police, who they're going to go take care of. If there's a problem in town, they're going to go to protect their family first. So, and as a woman, it's definitely, I feel it's an equalizer. Any man could overpower, the weakest man could overpower me very easily. So, yeah, I don't think that towns, I don't agree with town zoning us out of our ability to access, what we need to freely, exercise our Second Amendment. It should not be infringed on by Dave Atkins or, our town elected members. So thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. We do have one, I would say more comment in the Q&A section, so I'll just read this. This is from Kate Wynn, 10 Cedar Hill Drive. The Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee heard overwhelming feedback from residents that they wanted restaurants, clothing, and art boutiques, sports-related storefronts in the village centers. So that's what Kate had to say. There is one other comment out there, but the person has not provided their address, so I'm going to move forward here.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a comment?
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to appreciate the work of the committees. You know, I certainly may not disagree with everything that you decide on and make votes on, but I really appreciate how hard you work and the goodwill that you bring to your work. And I feel like that's important to state at this time.
Okay, thank you. So at this point in time, we have gone through all the items on our agenda for the public hearing. And so what I'd like to do is...
Excuse me, this is Jane. The planning board would like to, I think Dave Atkins would like to make a motion for his planning board people to continue their meeting just before we move on. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, David.
Yes, and I also, I want, it's in the memo, but I just wanted to emphasize that it's the unanimous recommendation of this planning board for all of these articles. So I think it's important that we came together on all this, and you know, it's our unanimous support of all these articles. But I would need a motion from someone on the planning board here to continue our zoning public hearing until Tuesday, April 6th at 7 p.m. via Zoom.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll have a roll call vote. Mr. McCusker?
Aye.
And Mr. Gotti?
Aye.
Ms. Conant?
Aye.
I lost the screen here. Is Mr. Paff here?
He is, Dave.
How do you vote?
Chris, I think you're on mute. Oh, there he goes.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So the planning board public hearing is continued until Tuesday, April 6th at 7 p.m. via Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jane, for once again keeping me in line here. So now, as we've gone through our entire agenda for the public hearing here, I'd like to call for a motion to close this public hearing of the FinCom.
I'll make a motion to close this public hearing.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. So this public hearing on March 30th is now closed, and we'll move into our section.
I'm sorry to interrupt you again. I need to take the roll on that.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Sorry.
It's March 29th.
Yeah.
To adjourn the public hearing, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Piscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Ittig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jerzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Lahan,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
and Mike Powers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So moving along, we're now in the section where we actually discuss the articles and actually vote on the articles. We're pretty good shape here as far as timing for this meeting. What we've done in the past, and a lot of it really is dependent upon how much discussion that we have before we take a vote. But in the past, we've tried to kind of drive through and see if we can get through all the warrant articles. That is not by any means on my part to try to squelch any discussion. So I think we have to just kind of play it by ear. But we actually do have time, and we have the ability potentially to go through these warrant articles and vote on them tonight, such that we don't have to meet tomorrow, but we'll just kind of see how that goes. So in terms of tonight, let's make sure, once again, when we discuss these articles, that you try to raise your hand in Zoom and make individual points here so that we can really hear from everybody and try to get an overall view. It's a little bit more difficult here in Zoom than it would be if we're all in the library discussing this. You know, I fully appreciate some people have strong opinions on this. I would like to, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I'd like to avoid making the same point, the same individual making the same point. So I reserve the right to kind of move forward so that we can hear everyone's vote and move this along. So we have a quorum. I think, Jane, probably what we said is that I would read the article.
Please.
Then
And
we'd
then-
open it. Then we would open it for discussion.
Yes.
Let me first clarify, though. We have two options. When we do vote here, we have two options. We can vote to approve, or we can vote for indefinite postponement. It's equivalent to a no vote. We don't really have three options: yes, no, and indefinite postponement. We have two. Understanding those rules, let's go forward. So Article 1, as Pam went over, we're going to go through the financial articles first. Pam went over those tonight. You actually were provided Pam's presentation. So I think that you've really seen exactly what all these articles are. So I will talk to them, but I won't necessarily say all the wording. So let's just, as an example,
Peter,
Article 1.
Peter, before you start, I think we agreed that once you get to the point where you're gonna open it up for voting, George Hertz is gonna make the motion and Tom Kilgariff is going to second it. So we just keep it clear like we did last year, have one person do the motion, one do the second.
Yeah, for simplification, I know that everyone's involved and everything like that, but we would want George to make the motion and Tom to second it, just so everyone's not stepping over anyone else to try to get this done. Okay, so in terms of Article 1, the FY21 budget adjustments by transfer, to see if the town will vote to appropriate by transfer from available funds the sum of $20,000 to supplement the following fiscal year 2021 appropriations. And this is what Pam was talking about, using money from the fire vehicle town match that was approved in the town meeting to use for DPW street lighting budget. Is there any discussion regarding this article? Seeing no discussion.
Yeah, Peter,
Do
just
we have a
want to-
motion?
Peter, this is
Oh,
Chris.
go ahead, Chris.
Sure that everyone understands what went on with this money. Last year, Chief Deckers wanted that, what do you call a swap body truck? And he was hoping to go out and get a fire grant for it. The cost is $400,000. He thought the state would pay, or the grant would pay 95% of it, and the town would pay 5%, which is $20,000. So that's where this $20,000 comes from. We held back $20,000. Westwood didn't get the grant, no fault of our own. We just didn't make the cut. There are a lot of other communities that were more deserving in the eyes of the people deciding the grant than we were. So this year, as you recall, we're asking for borrowing authority, I think, for $400,000 to buy that truck. This is the $20,000 from last year that was set aside as the grant, the 5% of the grant, and we need to reallocate it, as Pam said. So that's where all this comes from. If you're worried about the swap body truck.
Okay. Thank you. So do we have a motion here?
I'll make a motion to approve budget article number 1.
Second. Okay, Jane, do you want to take the roll?
You're muted, Jane.
Thank you, Craig. For Budget Article 1, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Piscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Ittig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jerzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Laham,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
yes,
and Mike Powers.
Yes.
Unanimously approved.
And
Okay.
Jane, it's at 14,
I'm sorry.
14 yes votes because Kate's off the board.
Yes, 14, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yes, 14 unanimous votes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Article 2, FY21 budget adjustments by appropriations to see if the town will vote to appropriate by transfer from available funds the sum of $217,500 to supplement the following fiscal year appropriations. This is coming from free cash and ambulance receipts, as Pam mentioned tonight, to snow and ice budget and ambulance service equipment. Any discussion regarding this article? Seeing none, do we have a motion to go for a vote?
Yeah, I will make a motion to approve budget article number 2.
Second.
Okay.
Budget,
Jane?
yes, budget 2, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick, Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Jane?
You froze.
Jane?
It
Peter
froze.
Ittig. Am I frozen or are you, Peter Ittig?
Yes.
Caitlin Jerzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Laham,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
yes,
Mike Powers.
Yes.
By unanimous vote, 14 members, budget 2 passes.
Okay, Article 3, FY22 operating budgets, Appendix D, to see what sums of money the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds and/or borrow for the operation of the municipal department and public school system for the fiscal year July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, as set forth in Appendix D of the Finance and Warrant Commission report to the 2021 annual town meeting, or take any action thereon. So this is the attachment that Pam had provided for all those different operating budgets. Do we have any discussion regarding this article? Not seeing anyone raise their hand.
Yes, I have, would like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Peter.
As I mentioned previously, I believe that another 3% tax increase is excessive and inappropriate at this time due to the economic consequences of the epidemic and due to the expected 5% or so tax increase for the school override that's to be voted at a separate town meeting in a few months. I suspect that we don't want to shock the voters by voting both increases at the same town meeting. Also, the town received 1.6 million in federal stimulus or relief funds in March, and that amount is not reflected in this budget. I believe that the town should have tried to hold the tax increase to 2.5% or less. I will vote no.
Okay, any other comment from FinCom? Seeing or hearing none? Do we have a motion to put this to vote?
I will make a motion to approve budget article number 3.
Second.
Budget 3, the operating Appendix D, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Idig,
No.
Caitlin Jurzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Laham,
George, you're muted?
George is muted.
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
Mike Powers,
Yes.
budget 3 with 13 in favor and 1 opposed.
Okay. Article 4, appropriation $1,304,650 for municipal capital improvements to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate in or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,304,650 for the purchase, lease, or lease purchase of the following capital items and improvements. I won't list all those. You have that in your documentation. Any discussion regarding this article?
Yeah.
Jim Ferrero.
I just want to note that, my concerns over all the funding for the WAHA.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Peter, can I ask, what does WAHA stand for?
Westwood Affordable Housing Association?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of the WAHA funding, I would just feel like I need to know more around, what it's being used for, right? So we're going to give funding for this, and I understand that the special purpose fund for affordable housing was withdrawn. And then there's a decision that there'll be funding that goes towards WAHA that would be specifically purchased for new units. But, I'd really be interested, like, how did they determine there was 2 homes for which they were going to, fix up or whatever? What about the other homes that exist here in Westwood, affordable homes where people need assistance and they can't keep up with their homes? So, I mean, for me, I'd like to know a little bit more around how they determined they were going to assist with the 2 homes that they selected.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Not hearing any. Do we have a motion to approve?
Yes, I will make a motion to approve budget article on number 4.
Second.
Budget Article 4, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
No.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
No.
Peter Idig,
No.
Caitlin Jurzak,
No.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Laham,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
and Mike Powers.
Yes.
That is 1, 2, 3.
So I think this is a good opportunity here to talk about how we want to, 1, do the write-ups, and 2, to talk about annual town meeting.
Can I just
So-
read, Peter, that it was 10 in favor and 4 opposed.
Right.
Thank you.
So with 10 in favor and 4 opposed, there's clearly not a unanimous decision here. So what happens many times is at town meeting, town residents will look at that vote and say, could I hear from the folks on the opposing side? So what I'd like to do is see if I can get a volunteer to help with a very short write-up to go into our own write-up that will explain a little bit of why voted no on this. So,
I'll take it.
okay, Jim. All right. And it would be very short. And Jim, I think you should be, as anyone who does a write-up here and someone who does any contrary write-up should be ready at town meeting. So if there's a specific question to kind of address that at town meeting.
That's fair.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Just
Go ahead, Craig.
Just a minor housekeeping or suggestion for the future. It might be something that maybe Jane could keep a running list of, but I think, I agree with Jim and with Angela, like maybe a little more transparency or maybe a little more digging on our part as it pertains to Waha. Maybe we have a running list for next year of certain things we want to kind of address early on in the season. If nothing else, more of a knowledge base.
Okay,
Noted, Craig.
it's a good idea. Peter Ittig, you have your hand raised?
Yes, I have an observation about the comments that will be printed in the warrant book. This is my second year on this commission, and last year the comments summarizing the commission recommendations were not approved by the full commission. And I was surprised and disappointed by some of the comments attributed to the commission. I'm wondering if it is the plan to vote to have the commission approve the comments that will be printed. And if it is not, I would consider making a motion that the commission approve the comments by majority vote before they are printed in the warrant book.
Well, this is not a time for motions. It's certainly a time for discussion and opinions, but it's not a time for motions. Let me tell you my thought process on this. It has been something in the past where we've gotten inputs from folks, and there's really a lot of work being done here by a lot of different people. And we are asking for these write-ups back by Friday. And there's a legitimate concern, and there's a timetable with this. And I don't believe, and we haven't in the past, put these out for everyone's approval because it just adds too much. It's too cumbersome and too time consuming. And I don't think it really gets to the heart of the matter. What we're doing is we're doing our write-ups to summarize. That is being reviewed by the chair in prior years. And so I will continue to review those. And Jane will review those too. And we also have a section here, as I just explained, for varying opinions. So contrary opinions to the overall.
Peter,
the
let me add something to that. The other point is the committees on this committee have done a tremendous amount of individual work, and a lot of analysis has been done. And then you ask for somebody to raise their hand and take responsibility for doing the write-up. And I think those people tend to take their responsibilities very seriously. You've also asked, which I think is very appropriate, to make sure that we reflect any concerns in the write-up. Okay, so I think the current process is excellent. The fact that we're voting on a majority vote on a lot of these articles, and if we do include some of the nay concerns, I think it's a very appropriate process.
And that, maybe I just can add a little bit to what George is saying as well, is we all have the ability to speak at town meeting individually, and we can express our points there as well.
Tom Kilgariff?
Yeah, and to kind of tag on to what Craig and George said, and Angela and Jim, Caitlin, Peter's concerns regarding, it sounds like it's revolves around the housing authority piece of that article. And so just as a recommendation, to maybe get a little bit more granular and just break out some of those line items to separate articles, so that it's not all in or all out type of a vote, because there's different departments and obviously different components to that one article in the future.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
We approved. So
We've already done that. We're up to budget article number 5 now, Peter.
That's right, George.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No worries.
I was actually looking at 5 when I said that. Article 5, appropriation of 1,017,000 school capital improvements to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,017,000 for the purchase, lease, or lease purchase of the following capital equipment and improvements. Pam has gone over those, so I won't list all those, and you have those in your packets. Any discussion on this warrant article? Seeing none. Do we have a motion to approve this article?
I will make a motion to approve budget article number 5.
Second,
Budget 5, Peter Lenz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Idig,
Peter, you're muted.
Pardon me. Yes.
Caitlin Jerzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
yes.
George Lahan,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
yes,
and Mike Powers.
Yes.
By a vote of 14, unanimous approval of budget 5.
Okay. Article 6, sewer capital borrowing, to see if the town will appropriate $500,000 to pay costs of engineering and construction services related to the development of plans and specifications for the reduction of infiltration and inflow into the town's wastewater collection system, and for the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and to determine whether this amount shall be raised by taxation, transfer from available funds, borrowing or otherwise, or to take other action related thereon. Any discussion related to this article? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve budget article number 6.
Second,
Budget 6, Peter Lenz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Idig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jerzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
yes.
George Lahan,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
yes,
and Mike Powers.
Yes.
Unanimous approval.
Okay, thank you.
Peter, can I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead, Chris.
So on this one and the subsequent borrowing articles, I just want to make clear that what we are voting on is the recommended motion that bond counsel has given us.
Yes.
In other words, the wording that he wants us, the wording that bond counsel wants us to make as our motion. And I take it that that's going to be printed in the warrant book.
Yes, it will.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Article 7, appropriation for additional capital improvements, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $505,000 for the purchase, lease, or lease purchase of the following capital equipment projects and/or improvements, which is also reviewed by Pam tonight: breathing equipment, ambulance rescue equipment, and stormwater compliance. Any discussion regarding this article? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve budget article number 7.
Second,
Budget Article 7, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Idig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jurzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Lehan. George, you're on mute.
I apologize. I have my kids in the background. Yes.
Thank you, George. No worries. Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
and Mike Powers.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Okay, Article 8. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,060,000 for the purchase, lease, or lease purchase of the following capital equipment projects and or improvements. This is the turf field, the pool deck, and the pool drainage and refurbishment that Pam discussed tonight in the funding sources, meal and hotel tax. Do we have any discussion regarding this article? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve budget article number 8.
Second.
Budget 8, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Ittig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jurzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Lehan,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
and Mike Powers.
Yes.
Unanimous vote to approve.
Okay. Article 9 is an accounting housekeeping article to see if the town will vote to rescind any authorized but unissued borrowing authorizations which are no longer necessary to finance the project or project for which they were initially approved or to take any actions thereto. Any discussion regarding this article? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve budget article number 9.
Second.
Budget 9, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Ittig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jurzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Lehan,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
and Mike Powers.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Okay. So Article 10 has been rescinded, so we do not have to vote on that. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds the sum of $125,000 for the stabilization fund established in accordance with general laws, chapter 40, section 5B, or take any action thereon. Any discussion regarding this article? Not seeing any, do we have a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve budget article number 11.
Second.
Budget 11, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Ittig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jurzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Lehan,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
and Mike Powers.
Yes.
By unanimous vote, budget 11.
Okay. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,490,000 to the OPEB liability trust fund established in accordance with general laws, 32B, Section 20, or take any other action thereon. Any comment regarding this? Any discussion? I guess what I'd like to say, I want to think back to what Pam said about the great bond rate that they got, that she announced tonight, that was 1 point something percent. One of the reasons that we get these great interest rates that we do from the bonds is because the town is in such good financial shape, because we do contribute to OPEB trust funds, to the prior article that we just did, the stabilization fund, different capital funds and other times that we've done. So it's really just a recognition of these things pay dividends, not just because we're working down in this particular case, working down the unfunded liability of the OPEB, but overall it helps the town's strength, and it saves us overall dollars in interest. And it's not insignificant amounts of dollars that we save. Any other comments? All right, do we have a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve budget article number 12.
Second.
Budget 12, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Ittig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jerzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Laham,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
Mike Powers.
Yes.
Unanimous approval of budget 12.
Okay. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to appropriate, borrow, transfer from available funds an amount of 1.46 million for borrowing for the school building committee to continue the work on the Hanlon Deerfield project. The town acknowledges, let me just, I'm trying to paraphrase here. I think we're all very familiar with this particular article. The town acknowledges MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement, non-discretionary program based on need as determined by the MSBA. Any project costs the town incur in excess of any grant approved by and received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the town, or to take any action relative thereto. So do we have any discussion regarding this article? I see Peter Ittig. Peter, go ahead.
Yes, this article asked about $1.5 million for the new Hanlon School project for bridge funding. In my opinion, this is premature, as it is only needed if the voters will approve the proposed override for the new school, which calls for a substantial tax increase. I believe that we should wait to see if the town will approve the override. If the town does not approve the override, these funds would be lost. Another observation I'd like to make is that at the time of the last large override for the high school, which was only 36 million, seniors were offered a concession that was actually approved at the town meeting in 2000, but never implemented. When we get to new business, if we do get to new business tonight, I would like to comment at that time, but I expect to vote no on this article.
Chris Pareda. Yeah.
Yeah, I intend to vote yes on this article. I would just encourage the person doing the write-up. I'd do it myself, but I can't because my wife currently works for the school department, and I don't want to throw any question into what's going on. But I would encourage the person who does the write-up to take Pat Ahern's advice and to try to explain in our write-up that this is not a referendum on the entire project, that this money isn't wasted And it's not even going to, I don't know if it's going to actually be $1.4 million. It may only be a small portion of that, but whatever it turns out to be, it's well worth it. The limited question we have to ask ourselves now is, can the town afford to borrow up to $1.4 million in order to, if we do approve this project, to save the town from the project being even more expensive than it already is because of delayed architectural drawings and delay start of construction. So I believe that looking at it just through that limited lens, that the town is financially capable of borrowing this money, and we should. So I will vote yes.
Thank you. Bill Bruce?
Likewise, Chris stole most of what I was going to say. But do want to emphasize that, as Chris said, it's not a referendum on the whole project. It's funding to continue the work, and the cost of doing nothing and delaying would, if approved in the fall, would push the project back 6 months, which would have a far greater cost from a construction standpoint, as well as I'm sure some other things. So heavily in favor of this to continue the work, and referendum can happen in the fall on the overall project.
Thanks, Bill. Tom?
Yes, and to also tag on to what Chris said, and suggesting whoever's doing the write-up to maybe dig into the math and the numbers to really lay it out for everybody very clearly, that the projected cost of the project versus the maintenance alternative, and then the delta between the two, and then also, as Bill said, what the cost of this of the 1.46 that we're voting on now versus delaying the project, and what those economics are. So that everyone can see clearly in that write-up, I think, what the alternatives are, in making a well-informed decision or recommendation. Thanks.
And I have a question. We've had the benefit of the presentations that both the school and the school committee, building committee have made to us. Do we know if they're going to make a presentation at town meeting?
I would assume so, George. I can't answer for them, but I would be pretty surprised if
Yeah,
they did.
so I think your comments are well taken, in terms of we probably need to be very, very, needs to be very thorough write-up, but my assumption is it'll also be supported by a presentation that they're going to have to make at town meeting.
And Diane has her hand raised, and maybe she could add to that or give us some more comments.
Yeah, so I'm the lucky short straw doing this write-up. So I feel like I'm getting a little bit of conflicting advice here. So I feel like the part of the discussion tonight was just be clear with them that this is not a referendum on the entire project. It's just this 1.4 million, up to this 1.4 million. And then I heard what I thought was conflicting advice, which was give them the numbers, make it clear to them, how much we're saving. So I just want to be sure I capture all of your thoughts, and I'm afraid I'm not going to do it justice. So maybe Tom, could you speak a little bit more about your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, is this okay if I take time to do this?
I think that's great. I think that's one of the things that we have to do here is to assist the folks that are doing the write-ups.
It goes back to, I think, one of the points that Peter Ittig was making, and that if the project is not approved by the residents of the town in the fall, then this 1.46 figure is sort of all for naught, because it goes into planning and site plans and all of that stuff.
Yep.
So therefore, that's why I think the including that sort of end game economics and explanation is key to this, because that will make this I think a more clearer, informed decision for people to realize that if you're in favor of the Hanlon project, and all of the economics that go along with it, then this certainly makes sense, because ultimately it saves money for, as Bill mentioned, in terms of cost overruns and extending the project, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why. If you're against the project, then certainly you would be against this type of a bridge financing.
Got it. Thank you. Somebody else also offered thoughts. Was it Jim?
Oh, I didn't have new thoughts for you. Go ahead. You need to fill in some blanks.
Gave me some advice about what they wanted included.
George has his hand raised, but then we'll go to Jim after that.
George?
Yeah, I just, again, just from a numbers perspective, Mr. Parita brought up a good point, and I want to follow it up. I brought this up before. The cost of the Hanlon School project is $88 million. But again, we're gonna be able to get $18 million for reimbursed from the state. So it brings the project down to $70 million. So that is a substantial cost, there's no question. But it is my understanding, and I asked this several times, and Diane and Mr. Powers were on the line, and it was made clear, the schools are gonna have to spend $42 million just to bring them to code regardless. So the real cost or opportunity cost here, whether we like it or not, is a $28 million for a new school or $42 million for a patch job. So again, I think we have to look at this not as an $88 million project, but as realistically a $28 million project, because we're going to be required to bring the schools to code and spend $42 million regardless. So it needs to be, in my opinion, it really needs to be looked at as, do we want to spend an additional $28 million for a new school? And part of that $28 million is the I believe $4 million for this research feasibility test.
I don't disagree with your numbers, George. I do believe that we really should focus our write-up on the positive and negative points regarding this particular expenditure, and not
just my opinion.
Yeah, and not bring the entire thing. To the extent that there is a presentation that George mentioned that, would there be, I would assume there would. I'll leave the school committee to whoever gives that presentation to put whatever they want into that presentation. But I think, it's just my opinion, that we should more focus our write-up on this particular expenditure. But I do agree that bringing in the fact that this can save overrun charges, is certainly worthwhile to do. But I think we get into a slippery slope and we make it a referendum almost on the entire school project if we start bringing in our discussion all the overall costs associated with the school.
Valid point, Peter. Thank you.
That's what I'm struggling with in terms of how to write this. But I'm gonna draft, and then Peter, I'm gonna share it with you, and if you want to share it with others, feel free. But I'll draft and see if you think I've captured it.
Sure. The point that I also should have made to Peter Iddigs is, we have me as the chair, we have Jane as our admin, and we have George Hertz as our vice chair, and we're going to have a lot of eyes on these write-ups.
Good.
Okay. Any more discussion regarding this? Okay. Seeing any, do we have a motion to approve?
Yes, I will make a motion to approve budget article number 13.
Second.
Budget Article 13, Peter Lentz.
Yes.
Jane, we've lost you.
Oh,
I say yes, Jane. I know I'm next.
Bruce, thank you. Jim Ferraro?
No.
No. Lauren Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo?
Yes.
George Hertz?
Yes.
Angela Hughes?
Yes.
Peter Iddig?
No.
Caitlin Jerzak?
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff?
Yes.
George Laham?
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
Mike Powers.
Yes.
We have 12 in favor and 2 opposed.
Okay. So although this is, that's a pretty strong majority of 12-2, I consider this to be a very important warrant article, and I would guess that someone in the audience would ask about the contrary opinions. So I would ask for a volunteer between Jim and Peter to provide a very short synopsis of why you don't agree, and also to be ready for potentially bringing that up in, if directly asked, talking about that in the town meeting.
Peter, you're muted.
Yes. All right. Would you like a comment to be sent to you or to someone else, for the minority opinion?
Sent to Diane because she's doing the write-up. I will eventually see it anyway.
Peter, are you actually requesting a minority opinion to be put in the book?
I would like to have that ready. I'd like to see it, and I'm not sure.
Okay.
You know, as I said, 2 is a pretty 12-2 is a pretty strong majority view. Okay, so I said that up front, but I do expect probably there'll be discussion in the town meeting. Whether or not we then include that in the write-up, I'd at least like to be aware of what we might want to say as that minority opinion.
Just my 2 cents. I personally wouldn't think it with 2 we'd publish anything.
Yeah.
As a dissenting opinion.
Yep, understood. I just like to.
But I
don't
understand
want
that.
when we are asked and maybe have to get up in front of town meeting, I don't want it to be too long of a minority opinion. So I just like to see what folks are thinking, which is why I asked for that. Not that I was specifically going to put it in, but I will tell you right up front that when we had 4 that said no, I think that minority opinion probably will go into the write-up. It's hard to make that demarcation line. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. So we voted on that one. So Article 14. To see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money to pay for the cost of purchasing a DPW roadside sweeper truck and fire multipurpose vehicle, and to determine whether this appropriation shall be raised by taxation, transfer from available funds, borrowing, or otherwise taken any other action related thereto. So this is the $650 expenditure that Pam was talking about. So any discussion regarding this? I guess I'd like to make a point here. For folks that were here last year, we've had discussions on this year, and we had discussions on this last year. And the folks that were on the DPW subcommittee, the municipal subcommittee, you saw a specific presentation, I believe, from Chief Deckers. And last year, I know I voted against this, and this year I plan to vote for this. And the presentation, I thought, by Chief Deckers this year was very good, in that this is actually a saving item. This is really effectively making 3 vehicles into 1. And we have some vehicles now that really, that are part of those 3 that I just mentioned, that really are on their last legs. And so to me, this is worthwhile. I'm going to vote yes. And I don't know if anybody on the municipal subcommittee would like to add any flavor to this multi-purpose vehicle, because this has been something that's been maybe a little controversial in the past.
Peter, since you asked me to do the the write-up, I actually delved into this a little bit. And just to summarize, I think the key point on the fire department is Squad 1 and Squad 2 are at the end of their lifespan. The estimated cost for replacing those two vehicles is $915,000 because one of them has to have a specific air supply capacity. And at the end of the day, the cost of the new swap vehicle is $400,000, and it basically serves as a fire engine, a brush truck, an air supply apparatus with a built-in cascade system, utility truck, and a salvage and property conservation truck. And its cost is $400,000. The cost of replacing Squad 1 and Squad 2 would be $915,000. So there's literally a $515,000 savings. And I think you're right. The chief in his presentation, operationally, I think this is a lot, adds to his effectiveness in the way he runs the fire station. In terms of the sweeper, in addition, Todd now has to comply with new stormwater reporting requirements. So at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, we have to be cleaning our streets more often than we've been able to do. So that's the key justification for his piece of equipment. And by the way, swap vehicles are something that the DPW has started to do, and they really, really take good care of their equipment. And Chief Decker has spoken to Todd, and Todd is very supportive of the concept. So just a little background for everybody.
No, that's good. I think it's appreciative. Any other discussion regarding this article?
I think Peter Riddick has his hand up.
Yes, yes. Thanks for George for summarizing some of what is happening there. I recall there was a discussion previously about how unique that $400,000 multi-purpose vehicle is. I recall that someone asked whether we're the only town that is purchasing such a thing or whether this has been done elsewhere. I wonder if anyone might be able to say anything about that, but that the $400,000 multi-purpose vehicle certainly does strike anyone reading the article.
Yeah, I don't know about the use of the specific vehicle. What I will do is reiterate what George said. One, it's already, this type of multi-purpose vehicle is already in use in the town, in the municipal department, and they believe it is invaluable to their use. And the second thing is the way Chief Deckers has presented this. This is a significant cost savings by going forward and doing this.
Yeah, Peter, I didn't specifically ask the chief about the question that Peter raised about whether other towns are using similar vehicles in this area. He did mention that they are being used in other parts of the country. But one other point is that the chassis of this multi-purpose vehicle, well, let me put it the other way, the pods or the bodies have a much longer lifespan than the chassis. So when the chassis needs to be replaced, it can be replaced very inexpensively, just like any other truck, maybe 40, 50,000 instead of 400,000. But we keep using and we keep servicing the pods as if they were new.
Yeah. And I guess one other thing I'd like to add is when Chief Deckers went over this, it's not just, I don't want to portray this as necessarily just to cost savings. There's some efficiency gained in the way they can use this, where they can actually drop part of the vehicle off at a particular site and then go back. I couldn't elaborate on it. Maybe someone in municipal could, but it's not just a cost saving, it's an efficiency savings too.
It's also an operational savings because right now, Squad 1 and Squad 2 almost duplicate each other. You have one in Fire Station 1 and Fire Station 2. This way, he doesn't have to, it gives him more operational flexibility in how he utilizes his staff.
Right. Okay.
And he's also very worried about brush fires.
Yeah.
And now, as George mentioned, Squad 1 and Squad 2 cannot respond to a brush fire. Whereas this multi-purpose vehicle could.
Okay, great. That's great information. I think that really helps the group a little bit. Any other discussion regarding this article? Okay, so do we have a motion to approve this article?
So I will make a motion to approve Budget Article 14.
You have a second?
Second.
Budget Article 14, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Ittig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jerzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Laham,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
yes,
Mike Powers,
Yes.
by unanimous approval. Budget 14.
Okay. So Jane, I believe we're off to select board articles now. You agree?
Yes, we are. We're off to, we're ready for the first.
Select board 1 is the Cranston Avenue acceptance to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and or borrow and or transfer from available funds a sum of money to reconstruct Cranston Avenue, to which the residents of said Cranston Avenue will be responsible for betterment charges, which will raise half the cost to reconstruct Cranston Avenue, and to authorize the select board to accept a grant of easement and accept said Cranston Avenue as a public way once reconstructed, or take any action thereon. Any discussion, excuse me, regarding this article? Seeing none, the only thing I would add is this is exactly the same article that we did approve last year, and so but it just wasn't because of the way last we have a motion to approve.
I will make a motion to approve Select Board Article number 1.
Second.
Select Board Article 1, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Ittig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jerzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Laham,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
yes,
and Mike Powers.
Yes.
That's unanimous approval of Select Board 1.
Okay. Select Board 2, for the town to accept municipal ownership of a portion of the former Westwood Lodge property encompassing the soccer lacrosse field shown as Lot 8 on A&R plan dated September 22nd, 2019, and endorsed by the Westwood Planning Board on October 1, 2019. Any discussion regarding this article? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve Select Board Article number 2.
Second.
Select Board Article 2, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Ittig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jerzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Laham,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
yes,
Mike Powers.
Yes.
By unanimous approval, Select Board Article 2 passes.
Okay. Select Board Article 3, for the town to accept municipal ownership of a portion of the former Westwood Lodge property shown as Lot 1 on A&R plan dated April 22nd, 2019, and endorsed by the Westwood Planning Board on June 11th, 2019, and to authorize a long-term lease of said property to LifeWorks, Inc. for the construction and operation of a 5-unit group home for persons with disabilities. Any discussion on Select Board Article 3?
Peter, this is Chris Pareda. I recall this article from last year. And I think it's not as transparent as I would like to see, because I think we learned last year that the term of this lease is enormous, for which the town gets very, very little money. That was all worked out by the planning board in conjunction with the special permit given to the Green Company to develop this property. So, and by this property, I mean the whole Westwood Lodge area. And there was some discussion last year about whether or not the town could get some additional compensation from the operator. The town apparently values having these 5 units being placed on the sustainable housing list so highly that they're willing to give up an unknown quantity of money that we could get for the next 99 years in rent from the operator. It's not true, in my view, that just because the operator operates as a not-for-profit organization, that they cannot pay their fair share of taxes. They're not exempt by state law just because they're not-for-profit. They may be exempt because of what they do, but I couldn't find anything in state law that says that operating such a facility doesn't make them capable of paying their fair share of operating the town. So yeah, we'll vote yes on this because the town has apparently valued having these 5 units on our housing list. And we certainly don't want to upset that apple cart. But I think in the future, the Finance Commission deserves a little bit more transparency from the planning board if such a deal is going to be struck before we're presented with this article and don't know anything about it.
Any other comments?
Another question, was this article before you last year? The same article?
Yes.
Yes. And the other thing, over and above the financing of it and the affordable units, it's, to me, it just is the right thing to do for the town to be accepting of people with disabilities and to be able to house them in the town.
And no question, Peter. But the operator of that facility is making a ton of money doing that. And I don't see any reason why they can't share in paying the cost of keeping up the town.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Any other comments? Mike Powers, you're muted right now, Mike.
Yeah, the other piece of that is the 40B piece. And to have 5 units, it helps the town protect themselves in that end too. So that's info.
Agreed. Anyone else? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
Yes, I will make a motion to approve Select Board Article number 3.
Second.
Select Board Article 3, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Idig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jerzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Laham,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
Mike Powers.
Yes.
That again passes unanimously. Select Board Article 3.
Okay. So then, Jane, we're off to the planning board articles.
We are ready for those.
Okay. So I have to admit that the documentation I have in front of me, I'm not sure I have the exact wording as we'd like to, as I've been reading the wording of the different articles. When you look at the presentation that was provided to us today, I'm looking at page 39 of 45 where it says planning board articles. It says 1 through 6. That doesn't appear to me to be the exact wording of the article itself. Do you have the exact wording of the articles?
I've got it right here. I can read what they had
And
tonight.
if so, it would be worthwhile, just if you could just read Article 1 and then we can have our discussion and then just go forward. So just take my place in reading the articles, please.
Are you saying George or me?
To you, Jane, yes.
Sure. So what I have from the planning board tonight is Article 1, zoning amendment relative to temporary structures and uses to create an administrative process for uses proposed less than 6 months. Planning board Article 1.
That's the full body of the article.
Mhm.
It is.
That's what we have. Yes, that's what. And you don't need to, in order to vote, Peter, to have the full body, as long as everybody understands
Yeah,
exactly.
understand. Yeah, just sometimes the full body is more extensive than this, and it provides more of an understanding just reading that. So to the extent that is the full body, we can still, it's been presented to us many times, and we can still have a discussion and we can still vote. So I just wanted to make sure. So any discussion regarding Planning Board Article 1? Seeing no discussion, do we have a motion to approve this article?
I will make a motion to approve Planning Board Article number 1.
Second.
Planning board Article 1, temporary structures.
Yes. Jane, are you?
We've lost you, Jane.
Yes.
Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Idig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jerzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Laham,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
Mike Powers.
Yes.
Unanimous approval of Planning Board Article 1.
Okay, so Jane, could you read Planning Board Article 2, please?
Planning Board Article 2, zoning amendment relative to firearms, explosive sales and services to prohibit in the local business A, and local business B, LLB zoning districts.
LBB zoning district.
Sorry, LBB.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, any discussion on Article 2?
I have a comment.
Yeah,
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead, Caitlin.
No, I just want to say, I'm not sure if I agree with this zoning article. I appreciated the comments we got from the public tonight and a couple weeks ago. I do think that this article could be misinterpreted as more of a message versus having a purpose, because we hear a lot about the special permit process and how effective that is. So I'm not totally clear on how this is going to add value. And then I think my other comment is, I hear a lot from this committee about unintended consequences. And I do fear that this could be one of those articles, that does cause that situation, because this article, in its intent or its message, is looking after our business zones, but we're leaving the industrial zone, which, if I'm reading the map correctly, part of that zone borders Downey Street, and then the Downey School is right there. So I guess I'm just not really sure if this zoning article makes a ton of sense. I think some additional time to really think through this one would be very beneficial, but at this point, I don't agree and I don't support it.
Okay. Other comments?
Yeah, Peter, to Caitlin's point, one of the commenters said that these two districts, highway business and industrial, couldn't be reached on foot, and that's not correct. Highway business, one of the places where highway business is located is Glacier Drive and Wilson Way. And now that there's a walkway from East Street directly into Wilson Way, you can get there easily on foot from anywhere in Islington.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve Planning Board Article number 2.
Second.
Planning Board Article 2, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
No.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
No.
Craig Fiscaldo,
No.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Idig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jerzak,
No.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Laham,
No.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
Mike Powers.
Yes.
We have 9 in favor and 5 opposed.
Okay, so because we have 5 opposed, this is clearly something that there was a strong minority opinion. I would like to do 2 things. I'd like to get a volunteer for a write-up that we would include in our overall write-up regarding this article. And 2, someone that I would think that same volunteer would be able to, if asked by at the town meeting, would be able to just summarize that. Some of that could be just reading what was said as the summary. So for the folks who voted no, do I have a volunteer to do a short write-up as to the thoughts of
I'll volunteer.
Caitlin?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Okay, so who has this overall write-up, Jane?
I do.
Bill.
I wrote it up last year.
Okay. Okay, so you can provide it to Bill and Bill can incorporate and we'll review. Thank you. Okay. Article, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm
I
sorry.
thought you wanted me to read the next one, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Article 3. Yeah.
Planning Board Article 3, zoning relative to medical uses, medical centers or clinics and offices of healthcare professional. To change ambiguous term of office of a dentist or doctor to offices of healthcare professional, and to allow medical centers or clinics only at University Station in the UAMUD zone.
Okay, any discussion on Article 3? Okay, not seeing any discussion. Do we have a motion to approve Article 3?
Make a motion to approve Planning Board Article number 3.
Second.
Planning Board Article 3, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Idig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jerzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Laham,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
Mike Powers.
Yes.
That's unanimous approval.
Okay, thank you. Jane, Article 4?
Article 4 is, Planning Board Article 4 is zoning relative to medical uses, prohibiting hospitals, to prohibit in all zoning districts in town.
Okay. Any comments regarding Article 4? Okay. Not seeing any. Do we have a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve Planning Board Article number 4.
Second.
Planning Board Article 4, Peter Lenz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Idig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jurzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Laham,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
Mike Powers.
Yes.
That is a unanimous approval.
Okay.
And we're ready for Planning Board Article 5. Planning Board Article 5 is zoning relative to medical uses. Creates a new substance rehabilitation facility overlay district in SRFOD.
Any discussion relating to Article 5?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Diane. The double hands up, right?
I just can't not speak to this. You know, folks who know me know that I've spent most of my life working in community health and community mental health, and work with folks who suffer from substance use disorder and programs who provide services to those individuals. The discussion around this planning board article was just horribly disturbing, both last time at our meeting and then at the planning board meeting, where the entire focus was protecting our community from individuals who have substance use problems. I'm guessing we all know those individuals. Maybe we have been those individuals, and certainly we have loved those individuals. We don't need to protect our community from folks who suffer from substance use disorder. So what I really, I think it's an issue. I think that if the town wants to implement this zoning, they ought to educate themselves by having folks who provide these services come in and talk, and then make a informed and reasonable decision.
Thank you. Other commentary from FinCom folks?
Yeah, Peter, notwithstanding what Diane said, and I certainly support what she does professionally, but I see this article more in the vein of Article 2. In other words, there are certain places in town that are appropriate for certain things, and Diane, that we don't want to view substance abuse facilities as something that's not desirable, but it also isn't something that we want in the middle of our neighborhoods, or residential neighborhoods. And right now, that's where they could go. So this is sort of a protective measure, and we can certainly revisit the issue if you know, once we get people to accept the fact that it isn't something we need to protect the community from, and we can have them go into more of the town than just this area. But right now, I think we need it as a protective issue.
Could I just respond to that? Is that okay?
Yes, one time, but what I try to avoid is responding to each particular commenter. But go ahead, Diane, because you do have, I think we're all recognizing that you have more general knowledge about this issue than we do. So please go.
I'll make it really brief. If you look at where they want to put this, it's bounded by 91, it's bounded by a train track, and it's tucked back where you can't get. It is clearly in an area. It is clearly, there is clearly
you broke up, Diane.
Intent here.
I didn't catch that.
Diane, could you actually repeat yourself? Because you did break up a little bit, so if you
Oh,
could
I'm
repeat
sorry.
yourself.
If you look at the map of where they're proposing to put this, the area is very narrow and thin, and it's bounded by 91 on one side, or
What's 90?
95.
thank you. It's a I didn't used to call it 95, 128. It's bounded by 128. It's bounded by the train tracks, and it's tucked into an area you can't get to. So it's not, Chris, that, we can look, this is one possible area. I mean, this is a clear area that has a discriminatory intent to keep these services out of our town.
Diane, can I ask your opinion? Did you think that the Southwest Park one, would that have been a better option when when the planning board initially proposed that?
I followed this now for a few weeks once I realized what was going on. The Southwest Park one probably, maybe, but they described that as an island. Put them on an island, they can't get off of it. Part of it is the language that's so distressing to me, as well as the intent. The intent is clear. And when they worry that the Attorney General might question the intent, yeah, I think she will. I think she should. I just think we should wait. I just think we should educate ourselves and then make an informed decision.
Well, haven't we already had it, right, with the Westwood Lodge? And I think we've had the experience with, individuals escaping and running, in the neighborhoods where our children and families were in jeopardy. I mean, maybe not individuals that didn't live close to Westwood Lodge, but I mean, we've had a situation like that, and it was uncontrollable, right? It was supposed to be locked in or whatever you want to call it, and they managed to escape. They were wandering in our neighborhoods, and people, were in their homes afraid to come out. So I think that there's a legitimate concern here, and we really do need to take that into consideration. We've experienced it already one time before.
Any other comments? So let me just add a couple things. Diane and I had a specific conversation on this, and I'm a little bit torn on this vote myself. One, I compare it, and there's not a direct comparison, but I compare it to some other things in town where there is a NIMBY type of not in my backyard attitude on things, and that can go from anywhere from affordable housing to other things, where people seem to be okay with the concept, but as long as it's not really close to me. With that said, I do feel that overall the town has done a good job with a lot of different things where we put boundaries and limits to a lot of different things. And I don't necessarily see a problem with putting a boundary here. And Diane, I can agree with you in many respects that this looks like, okay, let's bound this off in a spot where it won't get used. But I think there could also be an argument that says, to the extent that Dedham has a zone that this abuts, that this actually could be a place where it could be, promoted is probably the wrong word, but it could be adopted because it's already there as part of Dedham. So there could be a wider area right there where it could be adopted. And I guess the other thing is there is train access right there too. So as I said, I'm kind of torn on this. And the other thing I would say is that in part of our discussions previously, Diane, I've had discussions with Chief Deckers, and he talks about giving Narcan to Westwood residents. It's not a situation that doesn't impact Westwood and, oh, we're getting all these outside people coming in to a facility. There are Westwood people that are getting Narcan, and just have a conversation with the chief. He'll talk about it. So it is part of our community. I think our community needs to address it. And at this point in time, though there is not a perfect solution, I'm okay with this because it's that initial foray into it and allows the town to at least try to open this up. It potentially is you know, something that could work with the Dedham Center, and there is access. So once again, not perfect, but I think part of me, most of me says this, I'm going to vote for this because I think it is at least an action versus non-action on this type of thing. So, but I invite other comments. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve Planning Board Article number 5.
I'll second, but I'm going to vote no.
Planning Board 5, Peter Lentz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
How do you vote? Not sure.
Abstain.
Abstain if you'd like.
Yes, I'm abstaining from
One
this.
abstain, yeah. Hold on 1 second, sorry. Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Ittig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jerzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
No.
George Laham,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
No.
Chris Parade,
Yes. Yes.
Just a quick question. Procedurally, is it okay for?
Jane, we've lost Jane for a second here.
sorry, did Mike Powers.
I'd like to vote, thank you. I vote yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have our vote, but Craig wanted to make a point. Let's just.
Maybe you've already covered this pre me, but is it procedurally okay for the person that seconds it in the affirmative to then vote no? It is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. All Tom is saying is I second the opportunity to vote.
Got it.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure we don't get caught up technically.
No, thank you. That's a good question.
Jane,
Craig.
what was the vote? 11-3, 11,
11 in favor,
1 abstention?
11 in favor, 2 opposed, and 1 abstain.
Okay.
So here, once again, this kind of falls into that that fine line category that I was talking about before. So 2 people voted against. I think it's important that that we be ready if someone asked what was the opinions against, if Tom and Diane could get together to be ready at town meeting, one of you, to talk to that. If asked, I think that would be good. I think that 11-2 is a pretty distinct majority. I don't necessarily feel like we have to have that in the body of the of our write-up, but I think we should be ready in case of town meeting. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to make sure that come town meeting, if someone asks the question, we're not all looking around and staring at one another, or do you want to say something? Do I want to say something? So I'm really trying to avoid that possibility that we're ready. Okay. That sound all right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Article 6. Now I see where you're just reading. And as I said, Jane, I was expecting these to be more formal. But I think you would read Article 6, housekeeping zoning amendments to correct numerical errors and update Board of Selectmen to Select Board throughout bylaw. Any discussion regarding Planning Board Article 6?
No discussion, Peter, but the full body of the motion is in the letter that the planning board sent to us, date on it. But actually, it makes more sense to have Jane read what she read, because this doesn't really tell you anything about what's going on.
Yeah, I looked at that, Chris, and to me that appears to be a discussion. If we're looking at the same thing, it appears to be a discussion more, not just this article, but some of the other planning board articles. It appears to be a discussion, not necessarily presenting an article. So that's why I didn't read those other ones. Because it looked like I was just bringing up their discussion. So we have a motion to approve.
I will make a motion to approve Planning Board Article number 6.
Second.
Planning Board Article 6, Peter Lenz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Idig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jerzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Laham,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
and Mike Powers.
Yes.
Okay, good. So Jane, in terms of our voting, we are complete in terms of voting?
With that unanimous approval of Planning Board Article 6, we are done.
Okay, so then in the last part of our agenda is the other section, new business. I wanted to, though I broached this subject already, wanted to talk about write-ups. So the write-ups are due to Jane by close of business this Friday, April 2nd.
The earlier we can get them is better. So you don't have to wait till the end of the day.
Just in respect to Jane and everybody else, we have a relatively quick turnaround because of printing and everything, and we do have to review these. So whatever you can do to get those in will be appreciated, and we'll look at them piecemeal. The early ones we get, we'll look at those. Okay.
And just a reminder that what you should be writing is what the board reflected in the vote. That's really key. So just a reminder on that.
Okay. Any other new business?
Yes, I have an item of new business. May I proceed?
Go forth.
Yes.
Peter.
At our last meeting, we had some discussion about the large tax overrides that are in the works and the possibility of an offsetting tax break for seniors. Among other things, this might help to get senior support for the school overrides, and over a quarter of the registered voters in Westwood are actually over the age of 65. There were similar issues at the time of the override for the new high school for $36 million in 2000. At that time, the commission did unanimously recommend a tax break for seniors. And that proposal was approved at the town meeting in May of 2000 as Article 14. However, that senior concession was never implemented. The town attorney, Patrick Ahern, provided a copy of that article to me and to Chairman Lentz in response to my request for information. And he reported that the town tried to get the legislature to approve it, but was not successful. However, while the state legislature never acted specifically on the Westwood proposal, it did approve a senior exemption available for all towns that is very similar to the Westwood proposal from May of 2000. This is in Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41C. A 5% discount scheme that is similar to my proposal was authorized in Clause 41C.5. It's an odd name for a section, but that's what it is, 41C.5. Both of these are means tested. The Clause 41C exemption is means tested for income and assets, while the Clause 41C.5 exemption is means tested for income only. Clause 41D permits an inflation adjustment. Those exemptions for seniors have never been adopted in Westwood, but have been adopted by other towns. I have been able to obtain a copy of the description of the version of the Clause 41 exemption used in Wellesley and the Clause 41C.5 proposal in Newburyport. as examples, I would like to introduce a motion that would ask the select board to adopt these senior exemptions in Westwood. Shall I read the motion?
I guess you can read it, Peter, but this is really, you presented a motion to us last time that sounds like this is just dressed up as.
Different motion.
Maybe. Go ahead and read the motion, but we've answered this already, but read the motion.
Okay.
We will see if it gets seconded.
Right. Whereas this commission and the Westwood Town Meeting approved a limited senior property tax exemption as Article 14 in May 2000. And as that exemption was not implemented, and as the legislature has permitted towns to adopt similar senior tax exemptions under Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41C, 41C and a half, and 41D of the general laws. Therefore, the commission recommends that the select board act to adopt those Clause 41 senior exemptions in Westwood now to carry out the intent of the town meeting vote in May 2000.
Okay, and Peter has made a motion. Is anyone seconding that motion? Hearing no seconds, that motion is not continued for discussion here or vote. Okay, so next for old business, we have to approve the March 16th, 2021 minutes. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I will make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
Second, okay,
Peter Lentz,
yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Abstain.
thank you. Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Fiscaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Idig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jerzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
George Laham,
Yep.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
Mike Powers.
Yes.
That is 13 in favor and 1 abstain.
Okay. So this has been a really good meeting. I really do appreciate everyone hanging in there. I think we probably would also appreciate getting through the vote tonight as opposed to meeting again tomorrow night. So it was good that we kind of plowed through that. Though we did go through it, we really allowed for a lot of discussion. So I'm really thankful to the folks for all the discussion. And I really am thankful for the contrary opinions that we heard. I think we really need to hear those things. So I really appreciate that. Very much appreciate all the work that was done by everybody throughout the year. This is our last meeting formally until we have town meeting. So thanks so much. I will want to say there are folks, as you know, I mean, every year with a committee of 15, there are 5 that roll off each year. And I don't know if anyone whose term is expiring would like to say anything now, and they don't have to, as whether or not they are going to re-up or a request to re-up, or they are not going to. But let me just be silent. If anyone wants to say anything, please do.
How do you know if your time's expiring?
So it's in the town annual report. So the terms that are expiring in 2021 are Lauren Fitzpatrick, George Hertz, Peter Lentz, Diane McCarthy, and Mike Powers. So that's the group that's expiring. That's not to say You're out. You can,
Well, Peter, let me jump in, and I don't want to use the term expire. I prefer to think that I'll be here a little bit longer, but this is my second term, 6 years on the board. And I've made a decision to step away, and not because of anybody in particular or the workload, but to give somebody else an opportunity in town that may want to be a part of this process, which I fully support and wholeheartedly would recommend to anybody interested in contributing and being thoughtful about the different things that can happen in town. So that's my position.
thanks, Mike. Thanks for all that you've done. It's been, you know, we've been together for 6 years, actually, in this. We kind of came in together. So appreciate all the efforts that you have. I guess I would say to generally to all the folks here, they're definitely, you know, we've seen Mike as one. There'll definitely be people that will be stepping down. To the extent you have folks in mind that would really contribute, that are committed, that would contribute, please provide those names to Jim O'Sullivan as the moderator. Now, there's going to be a new election. Jim may or may not be the moderator going forward, but he certainly would relay any names, resumes, whatever that folks have that would be good fits to the FinCom. Anybody else want to say anything? Okay. Thanks for hanging in there. Great year, and we'll see you at the town meeting.
Once you've made your decisions, would you all let me know so that you'd like to be reconsidered or you'd like to step down? And we just need to do a roll call, Peter.
Yes, and Jane, when's the drop dead date on when folks should get to you?
So everybody's still in place until town meeting. Once town meeting has taken place, then that would be when, you know, Jim would really need to start considering who he wants to put on. We'd like to have people in place for the June reorganization meeting. So that's the timeline.
Okay. All right. So do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I will make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I will second.
Everyone seconded that. That was good.
Thanks, everybody. And Peter Lenz,
Yes.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Jim Ferraro,
Yes.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Craig Pascaldo,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Peter Ittig,
Yes.
Caitlin Jurzak,
Yes.
Tom Kilgariff,
Yes.
Jane, did we lose you?
Froze up again. Yeah.
I vote yes.
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 Tom. Sorry, Tom, did you?
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
All
let's,
right.
Tom, George Laham,
Yes.
Diane McCarthy,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
Mike Powers.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna say your names in my sleep. All set. 10:12 adjournment.
Yeah. Good night, all.
All right.
Night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.